Tell Us About Yourself is sponsored by bonusround.ca, streaming Canada's classic game shows on demand. Dive into the golden age of television with thousands of episodes of Canadian series that defined an era from anywhere in the world, all for just $1.99 a month. From iconic shows like Let's Make a Deal and Definition to cult classics like Bumper Stumpers and The Mad Dash, bonusround.ca brings you timeless entertainment that's fun, enlightening, and affordable. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, relive the magic of Canadian television history. Subscribe now at bonusround.ca for $1.99, download the free Bonus Round app on iOS, Android, and Roku, and turn every night into Game Show Night. By Game Show Forensics. In a world where game show imperfections go unchecked, where judgment calls are questionable, and where clocks tick with unsynced inaccuracy, there is but one elite force to investigate it all. Armed with the latest in atomic electromagnetometer and gas chromatography mass spectrometry technology, Game Show Forensics is always on the case. Join Robert McKee and his elite squad of game show scientists as they dive headfirst into the most absurd depths possible at GameShowForensics.com. Adult discretion is advised. And by The Inn at Leola Village. Nestled in the heart of picturesque Pennsylvania, the Inn at Leola Village is a sanctuary of luxury and relaxation. Indulge in the timeless beauty of their historic suites, each meticulously designed to transport you to a bygone era of elegance and grace. Experience the culinary delights of their award-winning Italian restaurant, where every dish is a masterpiece crafted from the finest local ingredients. From romantic getaways to corporate retreats, the Inn at Leola Village offers a haven for every occasion. Unwind at the spa, stroll through the lush gardens, and let the stress of everyday life melt away. Make your reservation today at theinnatleolavillage.com or call the front desk at area code 717-656-7002. The Inn at Leola Village, an oasis of luxury. Tell Us About Yourself. Conversations with Game Show Contestants is produced in partnership with the Strong National Museum of Play in Rochester, New York, one of the largest history museums in the United States, and one of the leading museums serving families with highly interactive exhibits and programs. Since 1968, the Strong Museum has been dedicated to exploring the ways in which play encourages learning, creativity, and discovery, and how it illuminates cultural history. And their National Archives of Game Show History. Founded by industry veterans Bob Bowden and Howard Blumenthal, the archive is home to thousands of artifacts representing over 80 years of broadcasting, including props, set designs, video interviews with game show professionals, and other iconic elements from the history of television at play. For more information about the National Archives of Game Show History or the Strong National Museum of Play, visit museumofplay.org or call area code 585-263-2700.
Blue 35.
Tell us about yourself, would you?
Tell us something about you.
For any new viewers, why don't you tell us again about yourself?
We've met before, but let's meet again. Tell us about
What
yourself.
else can you tell us about yourself?
Perhaps you'd fill us in again and tell us about yourself.
My name is Dean Rogers. I am living in Bowie, Maryland, which is outside of Washington, D.C., but also outside of Baltimore, Maryland, within about say about 30 minutes. And I am the founder and reporter for my own online entertainment news magazine, which is called The Rogers Review, which has been around for 16 years now.
16 years is a long time. There are challenges involved in running a site like that. I know from personal experience. So congrats on 16 years.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's been a whirlwind, especially we had to go deal with the pandemic and try and figure out how in the world is this magazine going to survive. But thank goodness to streaming media and all the coverage we were given during that time, it literally saved our butts and continued to flow and grow. As time moved on and people and events come and go and celebrities, it's been a wonderful ride. And I have to pitch myself all the time that it's been 16 years.
Dean, tell me what game shows mean to you, what they've meant to you, and what they continue to do for you.
Oh my gosh. It's hard to describe from time to time, but I have to say, game shows to me are a true escape. It helps shape the world as far as knowing the immense knowledge that contestants, everyday, ordinary people, can come up with a quick recall, whether it's trivia based or whether they have to test their physical agility when it comes to sporting games or stunt based games. And every time I watch these game shows growing up as a young boy, I felt that someday, one day, I'm going to be a contestant on one of these game shows. And I love the experience, especially knowing tidbits of trivia, whether it's pop culture or geography or who was the president of the United States in 1865. It's always a joy when I watch these everyday people compete for cash and prizes and trips and cars just by knowing what they know and testing out their physical agility. And the host alone, what else can I say about them? Every time I see these great, wonderful hosts, I always wanted to emulate them. In fact, I remember growing up, going to elementary school, I actually was Alex Trebek during a Halloween parade. I believe it was fifth or sixth grade. Game shows have been a part of my life ever since I was a young boy. I can remember watching Cell of the Century growing up when I was in kindergarten to going on to Jeopardy to seeing remote control back in the early to late 1980s. I mean, I cannot think of a time when game shows were not a part of my life. And to this day, even going on three different game shows, and since those days, game shows are still part of my everyday routine, either by watching Wheel of Fortune or Jeopardy, or watching old game shows on YouTube, or going to the sci-fi conventions locally and host sci-fi versions of these game shows. In fact, it was just a few weeks ago, I was hosting sci-fi squares, and the people at those conventions have such a great time. I've interviewed a couple of hosts, I've gotten their autographs, I've met some of them in person. It's a part of my life, and I'm so glad for so many years, so many generations is a part of everyone's life because what do we do without these game shows? They are an escape. They are part of our pastimes. They're part of our families.
Yeah, they really are. And it sounds like you've had a lot of experiences, in that world. Um, and I want to focus on something you said early on. You had talked about how much fun it is to watch people win things and win money and change their life and become famous and become rich and all these things based on what they know, based on their ability to answer a question, their ability to recall information. And I think I always considered that part of game shows to be sort of inspirational. I've loved knowledge my whole life and trivia my whole life, and it's only recently that I've begun to realize that I love game shows. But I think that even if game shows didn't exist, I would love puzzles and quizzes and those types of games, whether they're played on TV or not. I think I would have gravitated towards those, either way. And
Mhm.
so I have always loved trivia and quizzes and puzzles and words and putting letters together and moving tiles together and matching shapes and I love that kind of game. So sometimes I wonder whether my love of that kind of thing comes from game shows or vice versa. Um, but yeah, just talking about, intelligence and quick recall being rewarded. I think there's something to that. I think there's a very inspirational or aspirational quality uh, to a lot of really good game shows. Mhm.
I can agree with you more, especially growing up and going to school to learn about spelling and reading and writing and mathematics and the other subjects in time, and then to watch these game shows and to see what I've learned on a game, on a puzzle like Wheel of Fortune, or to hear a question about it on Jeopardy, or to hear amazing trivia that I didn't know, especially when it came to Jim Perry and his jokes on Solve the Century, that he always teaches us someone said something in relation to the last question or something tied into that question. It felt like my brain was soaking and begging for that knowledge that I wanted to explore more. And I remember growing up that my mom got me to read the paper at the tender age of 2 to know about the world that I'm just joining and seeing what it's all about and asking and piquing that curiosity. It's like, okay, I'm reading about this, but what does it mean? How does this fit into world? How does it fit into my life?
Yeah, not only knowing what the words mean, but the context is very important.
Yes,
Absolutely. Hey, Dean, did you know how to read when you were 2?
barely, but
Well, I
with
asked because
her,
I only asked because when I was that young, my dad was teaching me how to read. I think he wanted me to get ahead of kids in school. He just wanted me to go in there knowing that. So I learned how to read when I was like 2 or 3 years old. I was wondering if you had that same experience. I never met anyone who
I
had.
believe I felt I had that good experience of soaking up knowledge and starting to comprehend words and sentences at that very young age,
Sure.
and never knowing that it's gonna lead me into knowing a lot of game shows, knowing trivia, watching the news, and becoming a journalist growing up. I had to really thank my mother, the late great Sharon, who got me to understand the world at such a young age that no matter what situation I'm put in, no matter what I'm learning, I can always go back to reading that paper or watching the news or hearing something about it on a game show or a friend or at school and think, I know something about this, but how
Sure.
much more is out there to learn?
That's an interesting crossroads that I don't know we've talked about too much on this show, the intersection of the type of TV that we like and broadcast journalism. I mean, there are some overlaps there, right? I'm thinking about people like Mike Wallace and Pat Kiernan and Anderson Cooper, people who uh, were
Even Alex
incredible.
now.
Alex Trebek, absolutely. People who were talented journalists, newsreaders, broadcasters, who made that jump into game shows successfully. Were any of those any sort of inspiration to you as you felt out what you wanted to do with your life and eventually ended up towards entertainment journalism?
Well, growing up watching Entertainment Tonight and seeing John Tesh and Mary Hart and Bob Gowen, who was a sports journalist and ended up on Entertainment Tonight as far as the news and going to the local news, it had to be the one and only Jim Vance and Gordon Peterson, who were the dean of Washington Television News. Jim Vance, who was our longest running newscaster on the same station NBC4 here in Washington, who was an inspiration to my life, especially as a young man growing up. I had a speech impediment growing up, and it was my late speech pathologist, Dr. Joyce Morris, who recommends that I watch the news. And I took to news like a duck to water. I watched Channel 4, Channel 7, and Channel 9, and Channel 5, and listen to their enunciation, listen to their characterization, listen to their speech patterns that this is something I wanted to do, and to hear Arch Campbell to cover the entertainment news, to watch Entertainment Night to cover the national entertainment news, and then the game shows came along, and to watch these gentlemen, Jim Perry, Bob Barker, Monty Hall, Alex Trebek, Peter Tomarken, Peter Marshall, these game show hosts who represent class, integrity, and they are the traffic cop. They have to learn the game, watch the game, keep an eye on the contestants, make sure nothing messes up, but most of all, get the audience, home and studio, involved.
Absolutely. And I think that the additional layer of difficulty in there is that they have to do all those things, but they have to be cool the entire time. They have to look cool, they have to talk cool, they have to maintain their composure. And to me that was a huge element of what I loved about those guys, that they did have to do all those things. They had to be funny, they had to be informative, they had to be dramatic, they had to be empathetic, they had to be, they had to generate excitement, but the whole time they had to be cool. And I took a lot of inspiration from that growing up, just that ability to multitask and to keep the show moving. You mentioned something a couple minutes ago, and you're talking to somebody who had a pretty severe stutter for the first few years of his life until until I met a speech pathologist that helped me deal with it and treat it. Could I ask about the nature of your speech impediment and how it affected you in school or in social situations?
Yes, you can. I had troubles with the THs, the Rs, the S's sounds, and I was in, and I'm not ashamed of this now, back then I was, but I was in speech class from first grade all the way to 12th grade. At first, I was a very shy kid. I talked to very few people. I was a little bit nervous about some of the sounds were coming out, some of the mispronunciations happening. But I'm glad that when Dr. Joyce came into my, I mean, Dr. Joyce, yeah, came into my life, she helped change that and helped me to watch these programs where the professionals that I get to see who are dressed up in a suit, who have to be that calm presence for 30 minutes or an hour or both, to be your guide to learning about something new, to tell you about the world, to telling you how this game is going to play out. And it's been sensational. And then expanding that knowledge to going into the arts programs really helped out a great bit, especially starting in fourth grade. I was playing an instrument, I was playing the trumpet in the band, I was in the chorus in my school, and I was also in theater. Theater was a very good strong point, especially when I had to read words on a script and then get the chance to become someone that's not me, someone who doesn't stutter, someone who doesn't have a speech impairment, someone who can command the crowd by either their actions or their words. And it's a combination, it's this big stew of all of these things coming together that by the time I left high school and went on to college, I spoken like a true gentleman. Those mispronunciations and the fear of speaking were practically gone. And the way I can talk to people is like magic. And I'm
Wow.
really thankful for the teachers, not only on the TV screen, but my speech pathologist, my drama teachers, my band teacher, my chorus teacher, who really got me out of my shell and become this outgoing person. Because a lot of my friends will tell you growing up that they don't recognize the person I am today who can talk to celebrities and interview them and not have to worry about, did I say the wrong thing? Did I do the wrong thing? It's like if I
Sure.
mess up, I move on because I've seen the game show hosts, I've seen newscasters do it. So it's like if it's for them to do it and not mess up and not think, oh my God, what the hell did I do? And if they can be human, so can I.
Absolutely. I just wanna And I usually, by this point, we're talking about the contestant stuff, but I hope that people listening would agree. I'm having a lot of fun and I'm fascinated learning about you. I just want to put together this trajectory for a minute. You're a kid who loves games and has this speech impediment, and in the process of going through speech therapy, it's recommended to you that you take a look at some of the TV journalists who
Yes.
practice their enunciation and speaking directly to camera and taking such care of the words that come out of their mouths. And in that process, not only do you further your love of television, but you further your love of journalism, and it becomes this passion to the point where years later, you're running your own entertainment blog.
Absolutely.
That's
But
incredible.
the journalism actually didn't come until my senior year in high school, hard to believe. And of all the places where it turned around, because growing up, I hated writing. I did not like writing. But the tipping point was actually going to space camp in my senior year. And why space camp, people would ask. Would tell them, well, I've been to the Bahamas. Hurricane Andrew, thank you very much. That kind of ruined my cruise trips for a while.
Oh, no.
And then I've been to the beach. I've been to amusement parks. I wanted at the time to further my studies. And since I was a growing space enthusiast at the time, I decided, let me go to space camp. And I went
That's
to
wonderful.
space camp.
That's like the dream of every '90s kid who watched a Nickelodeon game show was to go to
Oh,
space
yeah.
camp.
Considering that Nickelodeon gave a lot of space camp trips, it's like, if I have the opportunity to go, I went. And going to Advanced Space Academy, which coming up next month, it would have been 26 years since I've been to space camp. And I still keep in contact with some of my teammates. We were on the Enterprise. I was a mission specialist number 2, and I decided I'm gonna write about my experiences. I decided to keep a journal, write a little bit about every day, what had happened. Did we participate in the extra duration mission? Did we do the multi-axis trainer? Did someone accidentally blow up the shuttle? So I wrote it down, and I had this journal, and it's like, you know what? Let me type it up and send it to Space Camp and see what they think. And I didn't hear back from them for a few weeks until I got a letter back from them. And they said, Dean, we have been around for 18 years now. This is one of the most well written articles we have ever received.
How wonderful.
And that blew me away. That's like, I could not believe it. I'm a
Wow.
writer, you know? And that turned the tide. It's like, you know what? If I can write about space camp and we imagine what I can do for an hour or 2 hour event. And it took me going to Bowie State University and learning about journalism from Maryland's first HBCU, which another space connection, Krista McCullough, went to my college. But it was a
Oh,
teacher's
she's a
college.
hero. She is a
Yeah, it was a
hero.
teacher's college before it became a historically Black college and university, which it's got its status about a decade after Chris McCullough attended there. So that was one of the
Right.
reasons why I wanted to go to Bowie State, because Chris McCullough went there.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yes.
That's
And then
incredible.
my journalism job, journalism training began during the college, but I also participated, which I found out about, the Honda Campus All-Star Challenge.
Oh, I'm familiar with it. Is it still Clint Holmes hosting it?
Clint Host has hosted, I think, on over a decade. I remember he did host them, even though it wasn't televised at the time. He was the host of both the years I attended when it was in Orlando, Florida. So, and I did get a picture of him and told him that I remember watching the older episodes when it was on BT. So it was great to meet Clint Holmes in the flesh.
Oh, that's so good.
And
He's an incredible host. I've seen him on a couple of pilots. I saw his audition. He actually auditioned to host Match Game in 1990, and I
no
had the
way.
privilege of watching his audition. He was a wonderful host, and I wish that he had gotten more work back then because
I
I
agree.
think he is I very much appreciate his presence and his personality.
Absolutely. And there's a funny story to that, meeting Quinn Holmes and especially during our second year. Our second year, he kept mentioning Bowie State during the opening ceremonies. And it's like, okay, why is he mentioning our college? Is he trying to call out our college or what? And that year, for the first time in our university's history, we made the Sweet 16 for the first time. But we
Oh,
got
that's
defeated
awesome.
by Fayetteville State University, so we kinda hated Fayetteville State for a while, but it was great to be part of HCAS because growing up and here we go. And I also got to meet, Richard Reed, who's Don Reed's son, the creator of College Bowl, so it was great to meet him during that time as well. So it's like,
Yeah, he
I'm glad to
created
have.
Dream House and all kinds of things. Well,
Yes, it's
at
like
least the '80s version, I think.
yeah, CA's version. Yeah, it's like so it's great to have to meet those 2 game show connections while at school and trying to figure out what career I wanted. Because originally it was gonna be a theatrical career, but it ended up being journalism, but I still kept theater as a backup just in case, you never know.
Sure, sure, of course. It's good to have options. I'm thinking, Dean, about the concept of affirmation. And I'm thinking about how you had these circumstances. I think about the speech impediment in general, because if having been a stutterer for years and years until I again found a speech pathologist that helped me, um, it just resonates with me. And I'm thinking about affirmation. I'm thinking about how you've had all these opportunities to have people look at what you're doing, whether it's writing or speaking, and say, yes, that's good. Keep doing that. This is great. You're doing great. And I can only imagine that it must have been a similar feeling to get on a game show, to make it to that point where, there was a day years ago when you were afraid to speak, and now you're winning thousands of dollars on TV. That just had to have felt affirming, and you just had to have felt wonderful about yourself.
It really did, but before I was on a game show to get that ultimate affirmation. I got that affirmation before, and it was game show related. So set the Wayback Machine to 2002, and I was still in college at Bowie State University. I haven't joined the Honda Campus team yet, but I did find out about the Get School tour that was coming to my area in the Westfield Montgomery Mall in Bethesda, Maryland. And since I was studying for journalism and my professor asked me I need to do an assignment, I decided to make that my first assignment. And to find out that Todd Newton was coming to my town, my area, to host this. And it's like, okay, should I? Oh, yeah, let me try to write him and see if I can get an interview with him. So I sent an email to him directly, and he responded, "Yes, I would like to do an interview." I said, "Holy shit! I
That's
get to
incredible.
interview him?"
Isn't there as I've had guests like that I've spoken to. Isn't there a moment where you realize, like, "How the hell did I do this?"
Yes, that was
It
that
feels
moment.
like witchcraft for a minute, you know what I mean? Just for that second, you realize that everyone is on the same planet as you know what I mean? And you're just another person talking to another person. To be able to make that connection is like it feels like magic.
Exactly. I mean, just seeing Todd Newton on Hollywood Showdown at the time, and now I get to talk to him, and I was totally nervous. So I went to my professor. I said, "Well, professor, I got an assignment. I'm interviewing a game show host. What the hell do I do?" But Dr. Thomas gave me one of the best advices that I carry through my journalism career to this day.
Sure.
And what he told me is number one, don't be nervous. But most importantly, treat the celebrity as if they were your best friend. You haven't seen each other for a while. You're catching up on dinner or lunch. Just talk to him. Talk to him as if you were talking to me, your good friend. Even though I'm a professor, but I'm a friend. So prepare your questions, but make it more conversational. Make it like you want to have fun. Make it like you're just catching up. So the day came, and it was right before everything was set up, and Todd could have not been more gracious, more friendly, more down to earth. And we spent a good 15 minutes talking to each other. We actually had playful set pictures. And I still cannot believe he is still the first celebrity I've interviewed before going on to interviewing A-listers and Hollywood legends. He was my first.
What do
And
you remember about that interview with Todd Newton that you carry into your higher profile interviews these days? Are there any lessons there? Anything that you learned or any other tips that you remember from that first interview that still resonate today when you interview people?
he basically told me, continue to do the good work. And I hope to see you in the future down the road. He was so gracious. He gave me great answers that it was wonderful. And since then, I never thought of Todd Newton the same way. He is not just a host. He's a great human being. And to have him as my trial run going into journalism to set the path of things and interviews and experiences to come has been so memorable that it's been, wow, oh my gosh, 20, almost 23 years since that first interview. And whenever Ty comes to this area or Baltimore, or whenever I've gone up to see him early in the day with Price is Right Live in Vegas, I mean, not Vegas, Atlantic City, we're always hugging and chatting and catching up and meeting afterwards for drinks. I remember meeting up with him and Randy West, who's also a very good friend of mine that we carry our friendship over the years. And that the last time I saw Randy in person, we were at the Hollywood show at Burbank. And my God, I can tell you, Christian, I think I spent no less than 2 hours talking with Randy, even though I was there to meet everyone. But Ray and I, we were just shooting the shit for minutes on end.
He's a good egg. I had the same experience. I went to see Wheel of Fortune live in Baltimore. No, I'm sorry, I don't know if it was Baltimore or not, but in Maryland, and it was Mark L. Wahlberg hosting. And afterwards, my buddy Corey and I got to sit at the bar and have some drinks with Randy and Mark, and yeah, just talk, just shoot the shit about game shows. There's nothing better, man, to have such a fierce, passionate interest in the thing, and to be surrounded by people that could talk about it with you for as long as you want or as long as they want. That's
Yeah,
it's good for your soul, you know.
it is very good because, with a lot of celebrities, they are unapproachable or don't want to interact with their fans. They want nothing to do with this. They're just doing a job and getting out. But for Randy and Todd to take this young man who is not part of their world, but a fan of theirs, and treated me and you like an equal, that you are part of the world. You may be a fan, but welcome to our brotherhood.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's exactly
What?
it. You know, it's again that feeling of like, you realize that despite what you think about a person and
Mhm.
what you think about a famous person, in terms of what you perceive their stature to be, at the end of the day, they're just another person. They're
Yes.
just another human with you. And I love the advice that your teacher gave you about, eh, you know, behave as though they are your best friend. And I
True.
feel like doing that also highlights their human side. People like being treated like a friend, and so they will treat you like a friend back. And that can happen in the course of the interview. In your case with Todd, it can be something that manifests itself afterwards where he remembers you and he has an interest in your well-being as a human. Yeah, just incredible experiences to have. Um, let's talk about your contestant experiences. So you and I have one in common. I was on Millionaire in 2009 and it aired in
Ah,
2010. I didn't do as well as you. I won 15,000. You won a lot more than that. Tell me so tell me what you remember about that experience. Millionaire was a life changer for me, and I wonder if it's the same for you.
oh yes, it was because I was on another game show before. You're definitely familiar with Paranoia, and I was a computer contestant, and I just basically answered the questions on the show from my home at the time in Oxon Hill, and then to see a few minutes later, my name popped up on the screen. It's like, wait a minute, what just happened?
Whoa, I'm Paranoia with Peter Tamarkin.
Yes.
Oh my god, I was fascinated with that show. That was, like, the first show to have, like a CGI set.
Yeah, one of the few. It was the first to have a CGI set. It was live. It had in studio, phone, home contestants, and for me to be part of that 8 episode series, and not only that, to win an E Machines computer just by remembering that one of the Bronte sisters wrote Wuthering Heights, and to have that as my first game show prize, I was floored. And it's been a great experience to have that and to, have Peter Tomarken, Wenny, the pressure luck guy, and I got picked, and it's sensational. But going on to the ultimate millionaire. So let's see, it was 2003, yeah, 2003, and I was traveling up to New Jersey with my sweetheart at the time, and I found out that Millionaire were holding auditions in New York. And I was telling my sweetheart, I got to crash for a couple days because I'm actually going auditioning for a Millionaire. And I remember taking the New Jersey Transit train all the way to New York City. And it was my first time in New York as an adult in years. The last time I've been to New York was I was going to a chorus competition to see Beauty and the Beast at the time. This was 94, and here we are 9 years later, first trip as an adult. And I remember I had to go into this bar across the street from ABC Studios, which there were several people in that bar. Still remember the smell of that bar. And had to fill out this multi-question exam, which I did my best. It was nerve-wracking. I think they were asking a lot of questions about history, geography, pop culture, a lot of trivia questions. And it's like, you know what? This is my first time to put my trivia to the ultimate knowledge. I'm gonna hopefully do well. But if I don't get it, it's fine. So did my exam, and then they graded the exams, and they were calling on names, and every name there was called. I was feeling bummed out. I didn't think I was gonna get it. And one of the reasons why I changed my name to what it is now is they butchered my first name. And it's as the last contestant to make the cut. And I was stunned. And it's like, I made it. And so they did the interview with me. And I remember one of the things they asked me about was my relationship at the time. And I kind of did a smarmy answer at the time, didn't know it was going to be used for the show. And they asked me, how long have I been with my sweetheart? Her name was Elizabeth at the time. And I think I said something to the neighborhood of 2 years, 7 months, 13 days, 7 hours, 43 seconds.
Aw.
And I think it was that answer that got me on the show. And so I got a call back, and I was working for the Bureau of Gravy and Printing at the time, and I had to let them know that I was gonna be on the game show, and they were very excited. They were helping me prepare for the show, and I remember making signs of when I was leaving, and then afterwards, when the show was going to air. And my sweetheart couldn't come at the time to taping day, and I remember going back to New York again in September of that year and getting 2 outfits because of the possibility I may last a couple shows, who knows? And then to see the studio for the first time, I was really taken aback because I remember just a year before I went out to California and got to be on the Weakest Link set at NBC Studios, the former NBC Studios, and seeing that set and actually meeting Randy West for the first time and meeting George Gray and got a great picture of them, which hangs on my wall, which I love. But to see the
Beautiful.
Millionaire set for the first time, it was astonishing. It's like, damn, it's actually a little bit smaller than what I'm used to seeing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's everyone's first observation when they get into, a TV studio or to set up a game show. I think all TV sets are like that to a certain degree, just how tiny everything is. I saw, years ago, this was years and years ago, my dad took me on a trip to NBC, uh 30 Rock in New York to take, like, the studio tour, and we happened to see, Conan O'Brien's studio, so they had just finished shooting Late Night, and I guess they used the same set, or they used the same studio rather, for the Rosie O'Donnell show when that was on. So, I remember it was the audience backdrop of Rosie O'Donnell, but it was the set of Conan. They were, like, kinda in between, and I remember just how tiny everything looked.
Yeah.
Uh, it's part of the illusion that I will never not be in love with.
Hmm. Absolutely. And then then going back to sit in that green room and seeing all the contestants, the would-be contestants, and never knowing what part of the episode or if you're going to be on the episode because it was back then you were randomly called, as you recall. And I was the last contestant called for my first episode. And then to see Meredith for the first time and getting the butterflies in your stomach because it's like, I've seen the show from afar, but I'm in the studio. I have the audience around me. Meredith is sitting right across me. Don't mess this up.
Sure. Oh, you cannot mess it up with Meredith. She is such a sweetheart.
Absolutely. And then to go through the first, I think it was the 4 questions and getting the first lifeline, which was the audience, which I still remember the question I had. It was, what fruit's edible peel is sometimes called a kiss? Which I may have heard about, but I don't know what it was called. So they gave the answers. I asked for, let's ask the audience. And this is where I nearly messed up my chance. So what happened was I said the wrong letter, but the right answer, and then it said final answer. I said, "Oh my god!" And she assured me that no, 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 you're fine. You said the right answer before you said final answer, and got the $500. And I said, "Oh my god, don't let this happen again."
Oh, that's nerve-wracking. Well, that's everyone's fear when they get on that show, is that they're gonna be one of the people that walks away with nothing.
Yep. And then the bell rang, and then we had to end the show, and then had to go back into the studio, change my clothes like it's day number 2, and to have Meredith on my arm and get back on that set again just an hour, almost 15, 20 minutes later, and to do day number 2 like it never happened. And then that brought up the time I was with my girlfriend for the second part of that episode I was on. And then I went through the questions, got my $1,000. And then the next lifeline I had to use, it was a popular style of writing desk that had a roll top feature, which I've seen many, 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 many times.
Oh, I know, okay,
Never
I'm
knew
sorry,
what
keep
it's
going.
called.
I almost know what it is. Uh-huh.
So I decided to use my second lifeline to phone a friend. I phoned my friend Jerry, and those 30 seconds are horrendous because I remember saying the question and then she had trouble hearing. So I had to repeat the question and then it was 5 seconds and I said, hurry. And then I heard her mother said, secretary. And I said, are you sure? And she said, yes. I went along and got my next part of money. And then, ooh, The last three questions were the craziest ones because the first question, the first question of the top three was the last one, which I used my lifeline, and it was about George Bush's State of the Union address. Which country was not listed as an axis of evil? The problem was that State of the Union happened on my birthday, so I did not watch it.
Oh, no.
But I used 50-50, and they narrowed down to two. And I remember it was North Korea, Iraq was one of them, but it was not Indonesia, because Indonesia, as far as I know, it's always been a peaceful country. So I
Right.
went with Indonesia, got my 16,000. Of all the questions that were the hardest, the 32,000 was the most difficult one. Still remember it to this day. And it was the first name of cartoon character Mr. Magoo. It was
Oh.
Walter, Rupert, Quincy, or Milton. And this feels like the Slumdog Millionaire moment, which happened many years later after I was on the show. So I decided to talk to myself and think, okay, which ones have I heard of first names?
And
And
you
I-
were allowed whatever time you needed, right? They didn't have a clock yet.
No, they did not have a clock at the
Right,
time. And
okay.
it's like, I think I may have thought 5 minutes on that question, spend 5 minutes. So I thought of Walter I heard of, Rupert I've heard of, the bear. So it had to be Milton or Quincy. And the person who went before me got up to, I think, about 16 and dropped down. And I said, my goal is to hit $32,000. And I told my sweetheart, I'm going to get at least 32,000. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to go with Quincy because I say, Quincy, you rarely hear of a Quincy. And then I said, Quincy, final answer. And Meredith said, oh, Dean, you got 32,000. And I just jumped out of my seat.
Oh, that's incredible.
And then I could have just walked away, but 64,000 is like, okay, let's go for more. And it was who co-founded Death Row Records with Marion Suge Knight. And it was it was Ice Cube, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and one other rapper. And it's like Entertainment kicked in 1991. Tupac, that was the one. Now I remember. And I remember, okay, who did what in 1991? And I remember Ice Cube was rapping at the time, so I don't think it could have been him. Tupac was just starting. Snoop Dogg was just starting. So it had to be someone who's been in the business the longest. So I went with Dr. Dre. And she said, you're not going to be mad if I miss it. And I said, no. And I got $64,000.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, it had to be Dr. Dre. He's the only producer at that point, too.
And I said, I had to ask her, can I touch the check? And I said, yeah, you can touch it. You can kiss the check. And I kissed the check on TV.
That's wonderful.
I
Tell
said,
me about the $125,000 question. Tell me what happened.
ooh, so the $125,000 question, it was about it was the 1943 story, The Little Prince. And he crash landed where? Was it the Arctic Ocean, the Mediterranean Sea, the Sahara Desert, or the Amazon rainforest? And I had no lifelines at the time. And I thought 64,000, I could almost double it to 125, but if I miss it, 32,000.
By time
My
of
goal.
32, right? Yeah.
And I said, Meredith, I had a good time here, but it's time for me to walk away. And as she said, final answer, I said, it's the final answer. And New York audience, I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, good.
And I had an inkling if I really thought about, because I haven't read that story since I was a young boy. And I was thinking, of all the places you could get stranded, I was thinking the Sahara Desert. I could have had $125,000.
But that's okay. That honestly, that you had sure money in your hand. I think you made the right decision.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
And the story is not over yet because a few years later, I met Meredith when she came down to DC for the DC Health Fitness Expo. And she was the guest because she was hosting her talk show at the time. And I said, I want to meet her again. And I met her and I said, Meredith, I don't know you remember me, but many years ago, you helped me get $64,000. And she gave me the biggest hug, and I said, Congratulations." I said, you were a great contestant." I said, "You were amazing hosts. Thank you so much."
Oh, that's so good. I'm so glad you got to meet her again. Yeah, I had the chance to meet her years later. I actually just happened to see her. It was at 30 Rock again. I was with she was my girlfriend then, she's my wife now. But we were just kind of walking around the city, and we had just checked out the tree at Rockefeller Center, and she was walking out of the kind of main entrance under the big NBC marquee. And I said out loud, just instinctively, I said, "Is that Meredith Vieira?" And she looked at me, she said, "Yes, who's that?" And I told her who I was, and she didn't remember me because this was years afterwards.
Mhm.
But, oh god, yeah, she was wonderful. She was, and, did you get the card in the mail afterwards from her?
Yes, I did. I did
Yep.
get the card in the mail, and they let me keep the paper check of the $64,000 from the episode I was on.
Absolutely, yeah, that's a prized possession. They gave me my whole set. I have all the from 5,000 up to 1,000,000, but the 1,000,000 and then the 15,000, which I actually won, those are, like, the most touched. They're, like, a little more worn than all the other ones. That's just
Nice.
that's a priceless artifact to have.
It is, especially since it's no longer on, well, it's sort of back on the air, but it's not what it was back then, you know?
No, 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 that is a definite era of that show that is gone but is missed.
Mhm.
Yep.
And, I'm gonna ask a friend of mine who does frame, since I got an autographed photo of Meredith on the set, and Imma tell my friend Imma have that photo and the check underneath, so that
That's
way
awesome.
it's hanging on a wall.
Yes, keep it forever, absolutely. How does your experience on Wheel of Fortune in your mind compare to your experience on Millionaire? Been led to believe that, uh, it's a very close-knit, very friendly, very familial atmosphere at Wheel of Fortune, and I imagine that that helps everybody do their best, and I think Millionaire was the same. Is that something that you'd agree with, having been on both?
I would definitely agree with that because the contestants, not only me, the contestants, but also the behind the scenes crew, and I mean, to have such great experiences on both game shows, both in the New York and the Culver City, Los Angeles area, it's amazing. And I do have a wonderful story about Wheel of Fortune. Which,
Sure.
Wheel of Fortune, and I was with the girlfriend who became my wife, who became my ex-wife later on. And instead of having a high goal, we decided to have a low goal. And it's like, okay, let's see if we can get 13,000. And I remember going to that audition, which was in Hunt Valley at this former Best Buy. And we were at the same day, we were going to go to the Baltimore Book Festival. We both applied for the show. Neither one of us was called, and they had one more session. And me, I was ready to go. It was like, you know what? I'm done. I don't want to do this. We haven't gotten called. Let's go to the book festival. And she said, Dean, let's do this last session. One of us is going to get called. I was skeptical, but it's like,
Why though?
you
Why were you skeptical? What did you think you had going against you?
well, because I'm like, being in a bar setting with just like maybe 50 people, we both know the cattle cost of Wheel of Fortune is many more than that.
Sure. Sure. So
So
I
it's
guess
like,
your odds, yeah, but it's also it's odds based to a certain degree because you can try harder than a lot of those people and take them out of the running right away. So you really just compete against the people who may have been as outgoing or as good at the game as you, which is a probably far fewer number than the total people that went.
you're right about that. And we decided to do that last session. And the very last round they were doing, I was called to be a contestant to try out. And I talked about my experience. And then I did my Charlie O. Wheel of Fortune impression, which got the audience clapping. And I called out the letters the best way I could. And even though I didn't solve the puzzle, I got my little prize. Then we made it to the last tail end of the Baltimore Book Festival. And then I didn't think anything of it. until I got a call back, an email from the Wheel of Fortune crew would say, "We want you to come back for the second round of auditions." And I was like, "Oh my God, this is getting real now."
Wow, yeah, that's a feeling for sure, but probably going into the second round feeling a little more confident than you did the first time?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Because
Sure, sure.
if I'd been thousands, because this was a 2-day affair from what I heard at the time, thousands of people showed up to be among, I think it was 60 or 70 people in the second round for the Baltimore area. And because at the time I actually applied for Wheel of Fortune, I think this is my fourth or fifth time of applying for Wheel of Fortune and never gotten this far ever. So so this time I went to the Baltimore Inner Harbor at I want to say it's the Hyatt or the Marriott for the second round. And then they had this puzzle round, which you had to solve multiple puzzles within 5 minutes. And they kicked us all out. And then they called the remaining few, and I was selected to go to the third round. It's like, oh, this is getting close
It
now.
just keeps happening. Yeah, sure, sure.
So we did the mock game, and I remember Broadway hit musical. Solved it, got it right. And then it gave me this little packet, told me, we will call people in the next 4 weeks. If you do not get called, don't worry. We'll be back next year. So I waited 4 weeks while my girlfriend at the time, we were studying, we were doing crossword puzzles, we were watching the show, we were practicing Wheel of Fortune in the car. 4 weeks passed, nothing. So I said, oh, well, meant to be, not meant to be. So let's continue. They called the following week and said, okay, plan the next 14 months of your life. You're going to be on the show. I said, okay, all right.
Wow, that's wonderful. But isn't that how that goes, though? Once you stop thinking about it, that's when the call comes in.
Yes, it
That's
is.
always how it goes. You gotta stop. You have to, like, stop trying to achieve the dream and just let it come to you sometimes.
Exactly. Agreed.
Wow.
So once again, my wife and I, we were doing our thing, crossword puzzles, practicing the game. And then it's like, okay, how the hell I'm going to afford to go fly out to Los Angeles? Like, this is not like New York. I could just take a bus or train. I have to fly out to Los Angeles. And the one thing I was grateful for Stephanie is she said, I will take care of the trip. Wherever you win the show, just pay me back and we'll call it even. And I think,
Wonderful.
you know what,
That's a
Michael?
great vote of confidence too, right? For her to
Yeah,
know that you're gonna come back with something.
absolutely. Especially,
Wonderful.
the minimum is $1,000. So it's like, that's probably almost half our trip. So we're good.
Sure.
And we came the day before taping, which was in September of 2013 at the time. Yeah, no, it was October. It was October 2013. And decided to make it a mini vacation. So we went out to the Santa Monica Pier because I always wanted to go there. We got a good rent a car. It was a okay rent a car until we saw the Mini Cooper. It's like, you know what? We're in Los Angeles. Let's do it in style. We're gonna take the cruise. We're gonna take the Mini Cooper for a spin, and it was the same price. So it's like, yeah, we're taking a Mini Cooper.
Sure, that's an experience, absolutely. I love a Mini, man. I love a Mini Cooper.
And to drive it along Pacific Coast Highway, it's like,
Oh,
this is
how
kind of way of
beautiful.
dreaming right here.
How
Yes.
beautiful.
And
So
then,
let's talk about the day of taping. Let's talk about you getting to the studio and meeting the people that you'd spend the day with, and Pat and Vanna. How did that atmosphere make you feel as a contestant?
oh my gosh, it's like, okay, I'm going from a New York set on Millionaire to America's favorite game, and I'm on season 31. And to go into Sony Picture Studios, which I've seen so many times on television, but just to walk on a Hollywood set is like, this is surreal. This is surreal. And then to go into that lobby and seeing all the collectibles and the pictures, and it's like, this is getting to be real. And then we had to go into the green room, and we were practicing calling letters, and then we were preparing for our hometown howdies,
which during the Howleys, the contestant before me was saying her hometown Howley, and then all of a sudden we hear Vanna White, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and the lady next to me lost it.
Oh, these all right, so these are the segments where the contestant kind of says their local TV station or where to watch them. It's like a little promo involving like for the locals,
Yep.
like the local affiliates.
Yep.
Got it. Okay.
And Vanna White came into the green room, said her name,
Wow.
said her hometown, and the lady next to me lost it. And Vanna gave her a hug. She said, "It's okay. It's okay. I just want to come by and wish you contestants all the luck, and I'll see you in the show in the next few minutes, hours." And the cadets going to say, "Dean, you're up." I said, "Yeah, you expect me to follow Vanna White. Good luck with that."
Yeah, that is not an opportune place to be for sure.
Yep. And so I had a little bit of superstition, I'll admit, at the time, since I was on the first of 5 shows for Millionaire. I'm hoping I'd be on the second or the third so I can just relax, watch the show, know who my competition is. And as we all heard the old saying, because they haven't done this in so long, we drew random numbers to see who would start the game or random numbers. And I found out I was on the first show again. I said, "Oh, damn."
Oh no.
And in the middle position. And I remember walking onto that set the first time and seeing the wheel, seeing the puzzle board, seeing the contestants, seeing everything. And it was like, oh my gosh. I said, this will never happen again. I'm going to enjoy being on this set and getting used to the risers and getting used to spinning that wheel. Oh my gosh. It is a heavy, heavy wheel. People out who have never spun a wheel will never feel I called the wheel a pain. Because it's like,
It is rough. It is
I
rough. I
felt
got
that
to spin it
wheel
once. It
pain
was
for
rough.
a
Yep.
week.
I bet. I bet. Absolutely. And the way they teach you how to reach down and grab the thing and pull to it almost feels like an unnatural movement. Like you could tear a rotator cuff or something doing that too much.
No kidding, no kidding. And then what was special about going on Wheel of Fortune is unlike the other shows, you get to know the prices. The prices. So we found out it was Secret Santa week, sponsored by Walmart. So they told us about all the other prizes you can win, except the prize puzzle. We never know what the prize code, because which I'm glad, because we wanted that instant reaction. But that season was the first season they did the express wedge. And I want to know, okay, how do we handle the express wedge? Because it was the first season they did it. And which I'm so grateful for, because going to that show, and we were one short, I think it was of 5,200, if I remember, if that was the episode. Wait a minute, I think that was. I'm trying to remember what was the name. I'm trying to remember how many episodes it was. I think we were close to the 6,000 episode, if I remember correctly. We were very close to the 6,000 episode. And then to do the first puzzle and got it wrong, very nervous, which was actually very generous. And then they told us about the rule of not to promote prizes, other prizes, logos, brand names, or experiences. And I told Pat at the time that I was an entertainment film critic and I'd seen hundreds of movies each year. And then he asked me for my favorite movie of the year, and I was thinking, oh my god, I better not say the name. So it's like I don't remember it at the time. And then the official round one, which Donna, who is the contestant on my right, spun the wheel and then got a monster turn. And then I kept spinning the wheel. And by the way, it was, "What are you doing?" And the one thing that they taught us, which was graceful, is don't look at the wheel. Focus on that puzzle. Because it's like, you don't want to know about the wheel. Let Pat tell you what the wheel, but you focus on the puzzle, because it could be a long puzzle, it could be a short puzzle. You got to think about the consonants and the vowels, and you have that use letter board, which I'm glad I can see, but people can't see. And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
spun 800, maybe 5 or 6 times or so in a row, which I did not know. Oh my god! It's like damn, I must be very lucky to hit $800. And then to hit the Walmart wedge, and I decided to solve the puzzle, which was returning a kick for a touchdown, and I got it right, and I got a 7,500 Walmart shopping spree on my first round. And remember how I told you my goal was $13,000 for the show?
Sure, you're already halfway there. It's not even
No,
not even
I
round
got
2.
exactly $13,000 in my first round.
Oh, yeah, right, because of everything else that you won, of course.
So that was like, oh my God. I said, I can just quit now and just take my 13. But it's like round 2 happened, and then I spun the wheel, and then I called the wrong ballot, and it was before and after. And then Megan, who was the contestant next to me, she got the luck of the Irish coffee. And so everyone by the time round 2 won money, won something. So round 3 comes, the prize puzzle, which even though I now have 13,000, but Steph and I, we said we got to get the prize puzzle because it's always a trip.
Sure.
So Megan went first, spun a few times, and I think she either lose her turn or got the wrong letter. Then Donna spun a few times, and she got something wrong. And then I kept spinning and spinning, and then I hit the express wedge.
Right, and it's funny, we just talked about this on another episode. I'll do it one more time. We just talked about this on another episode. The express wedge, you land on it, and you can just call letters at like $1,000 a pop until you solve it. But once you either solve it wrong or you guess an incorrect letter, it's a bankrupt, right? You lose all the money that you banked.
Yep, that is all correct. And you have the option of hopping on the express or not, just getting that 1,000 or how many times you hit that letter. And I decided, you know what the hell? It's a song, an artist. I'm going to hop on the express. And I kept calling consonants, and albeit of one more consonant that could have earned me $1,000, I knew it was Blue Hawaii by Elvis Presley. And then Pat came up to me and said, do you have any idea where you're going to go or where you're going to go? And I said, Hawaii. And I won a trip to Hawaii.
Oh, how wonderful. How was that trip? I imagine it was life-changing.
It was beautiful, especially taking Stephanie with me to go to one of the best beaches in America, Hapuna Beach. And at the time, it was called Hapuna Prince Beach Resort. And it was wonderful, especially hearing the ocean from our beautiful room. And the buffet and the food was amazing. We rented a car while we were there. We ended up going to the macadamia nut factory and its beautiful botanical gardens while we were there. And there was two things I always wanted to do, and I felt Hawaii was the best time and the best place to do it. So I went horseback riding for the first time in my life, and we went to the Dahana Ranch in the North Shore of the Big Island. And then when another day we went down south and we went jet skiing for the first time.
Wow. That's and again, you're living your dream based on your ability to think and talk and play and compete and win. That just I was reading your application and I saw a little bit of your Wheel of Fortune. You won something like $70,000 altogether when you factor in the trip and the Walmart shopping spree. And then I think you won a car, didn't you?
Yes, I did. And this is where going back to Slumdog Millionaire, when you remember things and somehow they come back to help you. So going back to Wheel of Fortune, we're still at Wheel of Fortune. So I got the third toss up, which was Wool Sweater Best. Then we had a fourth round, which I remember Donna got right. And the funny thing is, one of the rare things that happened on the show, which I found out from contestants, is the time's up bell rung during a contestant's spin. That has rarely happened. So it was good that it happened on my episode. So that's why I feel a little special.
Oh, wait, so what happens in that case? Do they just play through the spin?
Yeah, they played through the spin, which at the time Donna hit a bankrupt, and then they go directly into the final spin, and it was my turn to start calling letters. But at the end of the day, um, I won over $32,000 and I still got my wild card. So that came in handy. And then I
For the
introduced
bonus round, because you get to call another consonant with that.
Yep. So the category at the time was things. This was when you don't pick from 3 categories. It was still they get the random category, and I spun the big wheel, and I think it landed on an R if I remember correctly. And RSTLND, 2 words, and then I was looking at the puzzle, and I called my 3 letters, and my vowel was an A that I remember. And I had the wild card, and I was looking at that puzzle board real quickly, and I'm thinking, let's do a C. And Pat said, there is a C. So I was like, that's good encouragement. And then I looked at the puzzle, revealed it. And here's where that Slumdog Millionaire came back to help me. So my girlfriend and I at the time, we were moving away from Bowie, our apartment at the time. And one of the things that was on the things to sell was the actual thing that was the puzzle. Patio chairs. And patio chairs got me a Ford SUV.
That is incredible. I can't stop thinking about all the opportunities and experiences you've had in this part of your life where it almost seems like the groundwork is laid years prior so that as an adult or in the future you can experience the success that you had because of your recall, your memory. It's just so interesting. I wonder if you think that there's something to that. I've asked a few times on this show whether contestants think that their experience is governed by something bigger than themselves. Uh, I wonder how true that is for you. When you think about all the experiences you've had, and when you think about how one thing has led to another, the cause and effect of all these interesting experiences you've had in your life, um, who's in charge of that?
I would say the Almighty is in charge of that. And part of it is him guiding me to where my destiny is. And part of me is finding my way to that destiny because to have that combination growing up of watching all these shows, going to school, learning about these different subjects, going to trivia nights, watching these game shows, no matter if it's what's on the air now or what has happened back then. I mean, to this day, I still watch the classic game shows, whether they're the pilots, whether they're short lived, or whether they've been part of my life for many years. And to have not one, not two, but 3 life altering experiences of a game show is like, I was happy to just be on a single game show, but to do this 3 times is mind blowing. And then especially to take that experience and continue to expand it. That I go to conventions now and people love when I host the game shows, that when I host the Sci-Fi Squares, when I host Sci-Fi Jeopardy, when I hosted Pressure Luck, when I hosted Fandom Feud, and to see their reaction of something I got to experience in real life, in a real studio, in a real set, but just to bring it home to the conventions. And it's just extraordinary. And then to meet the game show hosts, to meet Todd Newton, to meet Randy West, to meet Kelly Mihara at a taping of Jeopardy at DAR Constitution Hall, to meet Johnny Gilbert the first time Jeopardy came to DC in 2004 after I did Honda and my professor gave me tickets to see Jeopardy in the DC, and then to interview John Davison at the Reason rally, and he performed a concert. And when I told him that I remember watching Time Machine and getting that first taste of history, his eyes was, I said, "You remember Time Machine?" I said, "I was 4 years old, and I remember the circular set and the danger thing, the danger game and the jukebox game and the 2 game. He was over the moon that I remember that at such a young age, and to get a picture and to have that interview with him and interview with Todd and to meet Randy West and Mark L. Wahlberg at 2 different game show live events, to interview Bob Golan to talk about Fast Friends. It is beyond words.
Tell Us About Yourself. Conversations with Game Show Contestants is hosted, produced, and edited by me, Christian Carrion, from my studio in beautiful downtown Lancaster City, Pennsylvania. Co-executive producer Cory Anotado. Researcher Chuck Donegan. This has been a production of BuzzerBlog, the most popular game show website in the world, in partnership with the National Archives of Game Show History at the Strong National Museum of Play in Rochester, New York. For more information, visit museumofplay.org. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Christian Carrion. Good night. Tell Us About Yourself is sponsored by bonusround.ca, streaming Canada's classic game shows on demand. Dive into the golden age of television with thousands of episodes of Canadian series that defined an era from anywhere in the world, all for just $1.99 a month. From iconic shows like Let's Make a Deal and Definition to cult classics like Bumper Stumpers and The Mad Dash, bonusround.ca brings you timeless entertainment that's fun, enlightening, and affordable. For less than the price of a cup of coffee, relive the magic of Canadian television history. Subscribe now at bonusround.ca for $1.99, download the free Bonus Round app on iOS, Android, and Roku, and turn every night into Game Show Night. By Game Show Forensics. In a world where game show imperfections go unchecked, where judgment calls are questionable, and where clocks tick with unsynced inaccuracy, there is but one elite force to investigate it all. Armed with the latest in atomic electromagnetometer and gas chromatography mass spectrometry technology, Game Show Forensics is always on the case. Join Robert McKee and his elite squad of game show scientists as they dive headfirst into the most absurd depths possible at GameShowForensics.com. Adult discretion is advised. And by The Inn at Leola Village. Nestled in the heart of picturesque Pennsylvania, The Inn at Leola Village is a sanctuary of luxury and relaxation. Indulge in the timeless beauty of their historic suites, each meticulously designed to transport you to a bygone era of elegance and grace. Experience the culinary delights of their award-winning Italian restaurant, where every dish is a masterpiece crafted from the finest local ingredients. From romantic getaways to corporate retreats, the Inn at Leola Village offers a haven for every occasion. Unwind at the spa, stroll through the lush gardens, and let the stress of everyday life melt away. Make your reservation today at theinnatleolavillage.com or call the front desk at area code 717-656-7002. The Inn at Leola Village, an oasis of luxury.